Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. Robbie Rhodes happy to be with you here this week, along with Mark Willoughby. A lot of excitement this time of year as you make your way to the holiday season. You know, basketball's in full swing for the men and the women, and it's become a bigger thing than ever. I remember when I first started doing this, February was the time of the year where everybody was focused on recruiting when the National Signing Day would come. Now there's an early signing period that has come on December 20th. That become the new thing, Mark. It's what everyone's focused on these days. February has become like an afterthought, I think, these days compared to what it used to be, with everyone focusing on now this early signing period. And that's mainly to get these kids on campus in January in the new school year.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Robbie. You know, there was a time there, 5, 6, 10 years ago where signing day was a Super Bowl. You know, you had it in February every year. Everybody had their big signing day bashes or parties, their get together with the alumni. Of course, back then, the social media didn't exist where you had video out there. So everybody would come to, an organized event to see the video, see the players. A lot of times it's the first time you found out anything about them. In recent years with social media, commitments get tweeted out, video gets tweeted out. So everybody kind of knows who the classes are, well in advance, or at least a pretty good idea. And then, of course, with the second signing period, or the first signing period, which is yesterday in December, it's right before Christmas. School's out. There's a lot of distractions. So it doesn't carry, as far as the hoopla that it used to. But, it's a chance, especially, I thought we talked to Frank Selfo last week about, one of the benefits, or I say benefit, but the silver lining to not making the playoffs. They're able to get out and recruit earlier. And of course, they did a lot of this class was done in the summer. So, and they held true and maintained most of their commitments all the way. And they're able to sign 23 guys right now. They're already here, or at least 10 of them are going to be here in the fall or the spring semester for spring football. And it just speaks to the job he and his staff did. And again, just an exciting time, and I can't wait to talk about some of these kids.
Absolutely. Limited resources, very little lack of NIL. It makes it difficult for our coaches, and they did a great job in putting together a class. And they met some really big needs. I think the guy I've been asked about a lot over the last 24 hours is Nico Williams. We'll start with him, Mark, the quarterback. He's out of Gulfport, Mississippi. And he's looking at his size. He stands out to people. 6'5", reminds you of Cephas Johnson, Cole Kelly. Coach Selfo, since he's been here with those guys, has had really big quarterbacks. Eli Sawyer will be obviously competing, but I think he's a guy that Coach Selfo is really high on coming into this season in his career.
I know he's Frank Selfo's talked about Nico Williams since they had him in camp. I know, privately, back during the season, we were on the road and just chatting, in the hotel, stuff like that. Really excited about Nico Williams. He's a baseball player. Also has big upside in baseball on the mound as a pitcher. Also swings the bat as an outfielder, so he's going to help Bobby Barbier as well. But the talent, or the raw talent's undeniable. Now, he's only really played 1 year at quarterback. He played a little bit last year, was more of a wide receiver, but this year was his first year playing full-time quarterback. And, as you watch his highlights, he doesn't look like a guy who hasn't spent much time under center or in the shotgun. He's a legitimate 6'4.5", 6'5". The frame to carry, 215, 220 down the road is probably already 200 pounds now. He can run the football. He's physical. He's got a quick release. He's accurate. Again, he's raw. And that's going to take some time when you develop or you come out of a high school offense into college football, where things are a lot more complex. Defenses, blitzes. I mean, there's all kinds of fronts you'll see, but you're not going to have any better teachers than Greg Stevens and Frank Selfo to develop. And can he come in and play right away? I don't know, but I just tell you, the sky's the limit. And I know they feel like he's got a chance to play on Sundays. So again, you don't want to set the expectations too high for him, but my goodness, you get a chance on a 6'5" quarterback who can throw, run, physical, intelligent. It doesn't happen a lot at this level.
No, it's a good thing, and there's a reason that he kind of popped off the paper. Will he come in January, Mark?
I think, no, because he's going to play high school baseball. So I think he's one that will not be here. He's a baseball commit, and I don't think he's going to play this spring. So there are guys that have signed and gone on and skipped their senior year to play college baseball, but he's not one of them. But that's kind of one of the drawbacks, and probably why some of the bigger schools didn't recruit him. One, he only had 1 year of high school quarterback as a starter, and he's a two-sport guy. So you're getting a guy who's kind of raw on both ends. You have a guy who hasn't played a lot of quarterback. Now he's going to have to split time. So when he's in the spring playing baseball, he's going to have to. Now Anthony Selfo did it. I know Frank Selfo. We talked about that last week off the air. He's not concerned with that because Anthony went from spring football practice over to the baseball field, and he ended up playing starting at quarterback and or played a lot of quarterback at Tulane, and very good baseball player at Tulane. Went on to a professional baseball career, so he was able to do both. And he's had guys that have done it, so I know he's not concerned with it. But I'm sure there are a lot of schools that were.
Mark, highlighting for you, I think the team did a good job. Hit some offensive linemen. There's another quarterback in the mix out of Houston, Texas. He's a Butler Community College transfer that I know is a guy who'll come in right away and have a chance to make some headlines, early on, and that's going to be an open battle this year. Again, Coach Selfo's talked about that. Tanner Murray, he's a 5'11", he's a 6'3", 195-pound quarterback. He's out of Houston, Texas. He's a guy that I think Coach Selfo is going to look to push that quarterback battle going into the spring with Eli Sawyer.
This is a familiarity sign. I think he went to the same high school as Ross Jenkins, who is a tight end coach, played quarterback for Frank Selfo at Louisiana Tech, and has been a member of the staff since day one, and started his college career at UTSA. So he transferred because, Frank, quarterback dad now has been there 7 years, and he transferred to Butler to get on the field. Numbers aren't great when you look at it statistically, but that's a tough league because of the weather, the wind. The accuracy numbers aren't there, but I think he may have led the league in passing yardage. But when you watch the tape, it's a good frame, quick release, has good feet, looks like he sees the field well, protects the football, moves and slides in the pocket, has some mobility, can extend plays. And, there's some physical elements here that I think will translate well in the Southland Conference and will be an upgrade at the quarterback position, because of the size and ability to move in the pocket. So I think that's a good sign and a chance to come in and compete. The question is, are we done at quarterback yet? Nico Williams, the freshman, it's hard to expect a freshman to come in and start, but you got a JUCO transfer to come in and compete with Eli Sawyer. Do you bring in another FBS guy or another high-level junior college player, to push, maybe give you a little bit different type of quarterback? So that remains to be seen.
Mark, something that stands out as well to me is the Lions did a good job hitting Canada this year again. I think that if you go back to Isaac Berglund, guy had a great career here as a Lion defensive end and then went on to play in the Canadian Football League. 2 Canadians were signed in this class. One is defensive end, Evan Aubry. He's a 6'4", 225-pound young man, and he's going to be a guy that I think the coaches are going to want to come in quickly and make an impact. And I'm trying to find the other Canadian. I just saw it.
Louis Gendron,
yeah. Yeah, he's from Quebec, and they both went to the same school, the Clearwater Academy International High School. So he's Lewis is a 6'3", 280-pound defensive tackle. So 2 big guys for that defensive line to help with the depth and to get that position, which played pretty good last year in the tough year. That group can help solidify that even more.
I'm really excited about both of these guys. And, Canada, now, of course, they played their high school football in Florida, in Clearwater, on a really good football team, on a team that I don't think they had 10 or 11 Power 5 signees yesterday, and they probably had about 15 kids sign overall. It was a bunch. I'm not sure the exact number, but Lewis Gendron, we'll talk about Aubrey, but we'll start with Gendron first. He was their MVP defensive lineman at their high school, and they play the best competition in Florida. They play IMG. I think they went 5-5, but were in every game, and that's a loaded program, and they get players recruited. It's the who's who shows up there to recruit. So for Southeastern to get into that program and sign 2 very productive players with some size and athleticism speaks volumes. But I know Frank mentioned the success with Isaac, going in the Canadian draft, and also Devontae Williams playing up there. Canadian football, they recruit they come in here and scout Southeastern, and that helped us get both players. And Gendron, if he's as big as he's listed at 6'3", 280. When you watch him on tape, can really move. He can get down the line of scrimmage. He's long. He's disruptive. Has a motor. Very, very productive player, and I think he's a guy with that type of size and athleticism can come in immediately and dominate in this league in the Southland Conference, because you just don't see that type of skill set. And of course, Aubrey brings some length. He's got a motor, can rush the quarterback, can run sideline to sideline. Again, similar type deal. I think both these guys for high school players are probably as close to plug and play as you're going to get coming in on the defensive line.
A lot of local products as well, as you would imagine. Only two Tangible Hope Parish players. Jermaine Davis, he's a defensive back from Hammond High School, was signed. And then James Harris is from Oak Grove, Styles Guidry is from Amite, Louisiana, went to Oak Forest Academy. So those two guys, two local guys, but a lot of guys from the River Parishes was hit pretty hard this year by this football coaching staff, you can tell. And that's a big thing, Mark, for the local capacity that comes with recruiting these kids.
We'll start with Jermaine Davis from Hammond High, and if this doesn't remind you of Robert Alford 2.0, I don't know what will. Jermaine Davis, when you watch him on tape, he's not real big, probably about the same size as Robert Alford coming out of high school. I think he's listed at 5'10", 165, and I don't think Robert Alford was that big coming out of Hammond High. I think he was like 5'9", 175. I know we were listed him like 6 foot 180 coming out of high school, but he was nowhere close to that. But Jermaine Davis, a cornerback, he can do some damage in the return game. He's dynamic with the ball in his hands, but he's this guy. I know he ran 11 flat, 100 meters last year. So I think he looks faster than that on tape. This is a guy that may run a sub 1100 meters. He can flip his hips. He can run. He can cover. He's got ball skills. He's productive. And to me, when you watch him and you compare him and Robert Alford, their high school tapes side by side, it's very comparable. So, again, his career's got to play out. Can he come in and have that kind of impact? That remains to be seen. But, boy, it sure is exciting to watch him play. And he really jumps out on tape. And then Styles Guidry is just a blue-collar, tough, typical Oak Forest kid that we've gotten here in the past. Drew Masita. Of course, Drew Masita is his high school coach, and he plays a lot like Drew. Two-way player in high school, played running back, some wildcat quarterback, tight end, but really good at linebacker. He's just got a motor. He's strong, physically strong right now. Not probably as fleet of foot as some guys you would like, but quick. He can play in space, and I think he's going to be a really good sign for Southeastern. Good they get a local product, especially from Oak Forest, where we've had some success with some of those players.
Mark, anybody else that stands out to you that's from the River Parish area? I see a lot of kids are really hit that hard. St. Charles Catholic, see that down there. East St. John. Who do you like out of that little group?
Well, I mean, both of them. I mean, again, there's really nobody on this list you're going to say, I don't know why we took that guy. I think everybody here brings something to the table. Obviously, some a little bit more than others, but Kyle Cannon, that goes by Deuce, played at St. Charles Catholic. He the best player on their football team for years. I think he was the MVP or close to it in the state championship 2 years ago. Was hurt last year when they played for the state championship, but came back again for his senior year and made it again. Another run to the state championship. This is a guy who, prototypical guy for the Southland Conference, a little bit undersized for an SEC Power 5, but at 6 foot 6'1", 215, 220. I know he's listed at 6'1", 220. Not sure if he's quite that big, but physical downhill player. Aggressive. And the thing I like is it's kind of a lack of a better way to put it, he's accurate. In other words, there's a lot of guys at linebacker, they just kind of overrun plays, misfit the run, misfit their gaps. This guy doesn't like he's just an accurate player. He's got a nose for the football, has good pad level, can defend the pass. He's fast, he's quick. Um, just a really good football player. And again, you talk about plug and play high school guys. He's somebody I think can come in and play right away. And then, of course,
BJ.
Let's go quick to Dekai Joseph, nickname's Quick Six. Again, East St. John, skill player, extremely productive. He's got a boatload of touchdowns in his career against good competition. And anytime you play on that River Parish and that league with Destrehan, Hahnville, St. Charles is down there. They play a lot of teams out of New Orleans. They play in the bootleggers in the summer, the 7-on-7s. He's as productive a wide receiver as you're going to get. And again, you talk about plug and play guys can come right in, catch the football, get open. And, we just went to Miami, who was with us. What I'm talking about, Riverside.
Who
was just with us.
Gage.
Gage Larverdane. He's in a Gage Larverdane mode. Excuse me, Gage. Apologize for that, but he's in that Gage Larverdane mode. So I really like both of those guys. Go ahead. You were about to mention somebody else.
Yeah, BJ Wagner jumps off the page. A big 6'2", 200-pound defensive back. He went to Orlando Christian Prep. He went to El Camino Junior College. Big kid, Mark. Big physical in the back end. Maybe one of the bigger DBs I remember us having since obviously Zai, but he's a big physical kid. It seems like back there.
And he started his career at Western Kentucky. Played there. He played 9 games 2 years ago, and transferred out. Just to get on the field, but. He was if you were waiting on the signee class to be released yesterday, he was the last holdup, and I think he finally signed on the West Coast. I think it was like 6-7 o'clock last night before his papers came in. But again, jumps out on tape. You talked about it. He's got length. He's physical. Can play safety. Can play on the hash. Run support. He's got length. Kind of reminds me. Like we go back to John Graves. The other young man from California escapes me right off the top of my head that Ron Roberts signed back during the first championship run in 2013. But very similar to those guys, a little bit bigger. And I think, again, he'll come right in and play immediately and upgrade in the secondary because, again, he'll bring some size and physicality that we don't have back there right now. And just a great addition to this football team.
So we got this young man at a Bell Chase, Mark. He's listed as a tight end / running back. Jaden, I don't know how do you say the last name, Mark?
Voisin, Jaden Voisin. Now, that name is familiar. That South Alabama has a wide receiver that is really good by the same name, so it's just uncommon. But Jaden Voisin out of Bell Chase. I would ask
maybe that Connor Briggs role.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to play him on offense. We're listing him as a tight end running back, and he's a guy that can carry the football and he can catch the football. He can do damage with the ball in his hand. And he didn't play a lot of offense this year. I think he played against Parkway late in the playoffs. So he played some Wildcat quarterback and running back. But last year I think he gained 1,700 yards as a junior. And I would go watch his junior highlight film. This guy is a little bit heavier right now, but he's 6'2", 240, 245. He may be 250 at this point, but it's downhill. He's fast in the open field. Tough to bring down. Very, very physical runner. He's a guy that can give you tough yardage, playing the Wildcat tight end. I mean, you can use him in a lot of multiple ways, and he can play defense. I mean, he played a lot of defense this year, played defensive end and linebacker at Bell Chase. But again, you can't take enough football players, guys that are athletic, tough, hard-nosed kids, coming down, from Plaquemine Parish and Bell Chase. He's tough. He's hard-nosed. I played against those guys in high school. They were always, they're just tough kids. And so anytime you can get those kind of players into your program, it speaks volumes and it gives you a chance to win in the Southland Conference.
Mark, Aiden Wilkinson, tight end, 6'4", 230 out of Central High School in Baton Rouge. Bauer obviously gets in the portal. He's leaving. Jacob Logan graduates. You have Ivan Drabowski coming back, but as long as Greg Stevens has been the offensive coordinator at Southeastern, and tight end has been a big part of this offense, and this kid, I think, will fill that role eventually as he's a young player, but a lot of good size, a lot of things to build on.
Yeah, it comes out of a good Central program that does a good job. They've always done a good job in the weight room at Central, developing their players. They'll typically show up strong enough to play right away. This kid's athletic. 6'4", about 230 is what they list him. Again, you can always subtract an inch and 5 or 10 pounds, what they really are, but moves his feet well, catch the football. They use him some in the Wildcat. I think he's a good young tight end to sign. Does he come in and get on the field right away? I don't know, but certainly, a position we need to recruit heavily with the loss of Bauer, and because this is an offense that uses the tight ends. This year, how many do we use? 3 and 4, sometimes 4 on the field at the same time, and so there's a good chance he gets an opportunity to play right away.
Mark, more JUCO, I think, than this program has seen in a while, but that's the new way of things with the portal. A lot of kids get left behind, having to go to JUCO, and that's creating the JUCO football programs to be a little bit more powerful than they've been in previous years. Yeah,
the guy that jumps out to me probably more than anybody, and I know this may sound a little bit strange because you look at his size and you go, 6 foot 270, a center. You don't see many guys that size playing in Division I college football right now, but I'm telling you, there's a reason why Frank Selfo and his staff recruited this guy. He's from Denham Springs originally, was a freshman at Copiah Lincoln. And when you flip on his tape, it's as impressive as any center I've seen, especially for somebody that Southeastern has had an opportunity to sign. His tape is phenomenal. Great feet, packs a punch, can get to the second level, can flip his hips and run. There's just not a lot he can't do at the center position. And he's doing it in Mississippi junior college football. And if they're known for one thing, they always have a lot of big physical defensive linemen at the Mississippi junior college level. So he's able to handle those guys and get them on the ground. And to me, this guy can come in right away and start day one. He'll be here in the spring. I'm not going to speak for the coaching staff, but it's as good. It's a very impressive sign, and there's a reason why he got here, and it's his size. And there aren't that many guys, playing big time college football at 6 foot 270 if he's that big. But I tell you what, I don't think he's going to have any problem coming in and playing in the Southland Conference.
One of the best linemen I remember us ever having here, Michael Vick, who was maybe 5'9". Something like that, but he was just a great offensive lineman. So, Mark, wrapping it up here with this.
Same JUCO as John Allen, same position. They were both freshmen, so I would compare him a lot to John Allen, just not as big. Go ahead.
Mark, wrapping it up here, your final thoughts on this class for 2023-2024?
Well, there's a couple other kids real quick I'll bring up that I think are going to come in and make immediate impacts. Taboris Charles, running back out of Moss Point, Mississippi. I think he's a guy that's going to step in. He's a home run hitter, a true running back, downhill runner with moves, can catch the football, can score from anywhere on the field. I think he's going to step in and play immediately at the running back position. I love all of the high school defensive backs. Southeastern was able to sign 2 guys from Carr, Trey Brown, Levi Darensburg. Very productive players that were highly sought after. Rayan Otis is a guy coming off an injury. I think it's a big steal. Really missed half of last season, came back and kind of went under the radar. Darnell Oquin, we didn't talk about, from John Ehret, 6'8" high jumper, great athlete, can fly. He'll play receiver here. So, again, just a lot of good football players. Lamar Brown's a JUCO kid signed out of New Jersey. In Pennsylvania, is going to come in and be able to rush a passer off the edge. So it's a lot of good football players. And again, I guess the big question is, and I hate to say this, but in today's era, how many of these guys, they're going to come in here, develop, and then move on. You hope you can keep them here for, the duration of their careers. But there's a lot of players on here that are going to impact quickly and have a chance to show well.
That's what we're hoping for. We hope it leads to wins, Marks, and Mark can get this team going. So, exciting class, a lot of hard work from the coaching staff, Coach Selfo and his crew. looking forward to getting out there and seeing what these guys that'll be here in the spring have, and any remainders that'll be here in August. So we'll take a break. We'll come back a little bit more after this, but take a look at our recruits that were signed on the 20th of December in this early signing period 2023. I'm Robbie Rhodes. We'll take a break and come back. Mark Willoughby after this.
And welcome back to the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. Just wrapping up National Signing Day with Robbie Rhodes, talking about Frank Selfo's recruiting class. What a good class it was, and a lot of outstanding talent. Hopefully get in here in the spring. A lot of, I think, 10 players will be here in the spring and participate in spring practice, and a lot of good talent to develop. So good job by the coaching staff, and I know Lion fans will be excited to see all these guys play. A lot of local products, and looking forward to seeing them in years to come. Going to dive quickly into Southeastern basketball. Last night, Lions men returned home after what seems like forever on the road. Last time they were here was almost a month ago when they defeated Southern New Orleans 101-55. Of course, opened the season against Delta State here at home, but it's been on the road Warriors since then, as most teams in the Southland Conference are. But again, Southeastern spending a lot of time away from home. They've been banged up and just trying to piece it all together. And of course, they had that big win last Saturday against Murray State, 61-55, and what's a very difficult place to play. And I know that was a big relief for David Kiefer and his team, as they showed what they're capable of and why they were picked to win the Southland Conference preseason by the coaches and the sports information directors. Grambling came into town last night, 2-8, similar type schedule, globe-trotting around the country, playing a lot of Power 5 conference opponents without a Division I win, 2-8. So they were a hungry basketball team, feeling like this was a chance for them to get a win. And they've had some success against Southeastern in recent years. Well-coached basketball team coming off a SWAC championship last year, preseason favorites. And they were, again, a gritty bunch last night. Southeastern controlled the basketball game most of the way, especially the first half into the first part of the second half, led by as much as 12. Held Grambling to 16 points in the first half. I thought Southeastern really defended well and got after it. Struggled a little bit offensively, but I think Grambling had a lot to do with that as well. Points were hard to come by. They were at a premium, but Southeastern was able to shoot the basketball well early and also shared the basketball in the first half. Grambling switched some defenses in half number 2, bothered Southeastern with some full court pressure, able to get back in the game and whittle away a 12-point lead, eventually taking the lead, and had a 1-point lead late within 30 seconds to go. And it was Roger McFarland with a fall-away jumper from about 15 feet to put the Lions in front for good. And then Nick Caldwell with a big rebound at the buzzer to seal the victory for Southeastern. And again, Southeastern shorthanded right now. Really only 7 healthy bodies. Played 8 guys last night. Jason Malbrough still trying to get his sea legs on the basketball floor coming out of football. But Chino Paez is out with an injury. And then also Dylan Canaville, was not 100%. He had an injury and not able to play last night. So Southeastern shorthanded, a lot of guys having to play a lot of minutes. McFarland played 37 minutes. Brody Roberry at 6'11", 290, played another 33 minutes last night. Nick Caldwell, 34 minutes. Roscoe Eastman, 35. And Alec Woodard played 36 minutes. So your 5 starters all playing mid-30s minutes. And, again, Lions trying to get that win, so doing what they had to do. And Cam Burton came off the bench, played 10 minutes. Avery Wilson played 12 off the bench. And, again, Jason Malbrough only played 3 minutes last night. But, again, another great performance by Roger McFarland, 13 points, 9 rebounds. Did not turn the basketball over. I thought that's one thing Southeastern did last night, was protect the basketball, although they didn't shoot it particularly well. But when you protect it and you rebound, you got a chance to win games, and you play defense, and that's what happened. Brody Roberry, a solid game, 10 points, 6 rebounds, struggled a little bit at the free throw line, but really gave a great effort last night. Of course, got a technical late, which almost cost him, but again, he played very hard, the big man out of Meridian, Idaho. Nick Caldwell, only 4 of 12 shooting, struggled a little bit offensively with 9 points, but he had 8 big rebounds, including that last rebound to seal it at the end, and was just active going to the glass, and he's always active defensively, and just having a great senior year. I want to take a tip of the hat to Nick Caldwell. Last night set the all-time Southeastern record for games played. So he's been here for a long time, and he's been playing since day one. Nick Caldwell, a Warrior from Dutchtown, Prairieville, Louisiana, and just a tremendous career here at Southeastern. It's not done yet, and looking for big things to come from Nick as we get into conference play. Southeastern Lady Lions last night, and ironically, played Tulsa, who very good program, 9-3 coming in, and they fall at the buzzer 48-47. So you have the men win 48-47, the women lose 48-47 out in Hawaii at the Maui Classic. Lady Lions go 0-2 as they fall to Oregon State in the opener. Of course, Oregon State undefeated out of the Pac-12, and a good program this year. Southeastern struggled, with the travel, and just ran up against the buzzsaw in that first ball game. But able to come back yesterday and fall at the buzzer after leading most of the way. We're going to go ahead and take another quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to have a very special guest, Dr. Damon Sunde, voice of Southeastern Lions baseball and the new general manager of KSLU, is going to join us, talk about the transition from KSLU 90.9 to Lion, which has a new format and new programming. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about baseball and get a little bit of a sneak peek of Bobby Barbier's group coming up this spring. So we'll be back after this timeout here on the Southeastern Sports Network. There he is, Damon Sunde. We are live and we're on.
All right, can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
All right, sounds good.
Damon Sunde steps into the podcast, and Damon, you got a new hat. You are now the general manager of KSLU 90.9 The Lion, and of course we are excited to have our podcast played each and every Friday on your afternoon drive at 5 o'clock, and let's just talk a little bit about the new gig and what's going on at KSLU. A lot of changes, a lot of format changes. There's a lot of exciting things underway.
Yeah, it's been a real busy last couple of months with the flip of the format and adding the music and everything else that goes along with it, but also kind of changing up some of the programs that we have and looking for ones that kind of fit the format, but also the mission, which is kind of to turn this into a true community station. Not only just serving the university, but Hammond America, the Ponchatoula, up to Amite, and kind of the whole area that we cover, serving that area as opposed to just kind of looking at it as something just for the students. It needs to be something that serves everybody. And in the meantime, if we can provide a training ground for the students, and that's kind of the other part of it, is kind of expanding that mission beyond just being a DJ. How do you do audio or sound engineering and mixing? How do you do sports play-by-play? How do you host your own talk show or those? And so there's kind of trying to make it an all full mission as opposed to just kind of a very narrow one. And that was something that the university had kind of asked when we talked about this whole thing. And so it's a plan in progress, so to speak. I don't know that it'll ever be finished because there's always little tweaks you can make and things are always changing. That's the nature of media. As you know, it's a 24/7 business, and you got to stay on your toes to kind of be up with the times.
Well, it's certainly not your mom and dad or Uncle Joe's KSLU, that's for sure. And it's a radical departure from what it used to be, which was, not to knock how it was before, but it wasn't for everybody. And it was, for a narrow slice of audience, as you mentioned. And now you got a little bit of everything. You've got, top 40, you got the oldies, you got all kinds of just what I call common sense radio. Music, and of course you've got sports programming, you've got outside programming, you got a little bit of everything. And I think people are missing the boat if they don't tune in to KSLU on a regular basis.
They're just trying to make it something that we have an opportunity to do a little something different. I know a few people think, oh, well, you're playing the same thing as some commercial radio stations to a degree, but they were already doing that before. A lot of the music library was already there. It was just not being played as often. And the whole point is to try and make it an educational, that's what it's called, as a non-commercial educational station. That's what the FCC license is labeled. And so trying to educate on rock and roll, so to speak. Our marquee show is Rock School by Dr. Joe Burns, a professor here on campus, and it's all about taking a subject in rock and roll and breaking it down in an educational fashion.
And let's talk about Rock School real quickly, because that is a gem of a show. Emanates right out of here at Southeastern, and Dr. Joe Burns, you said, he does a fantastic job, and I think you're just really missing the boat if you haven't tuned into Rock School over the years. And it's just legendary for me, and I love it. Very educational, as you mentioned, and you can learn a lot by tuning in.
Well, and it's nationally syndicated from right here. So he's taking everything that you hear, and it's airing on stations around the nation, which is fantastic because it's a little slice of Southeastern that is popping up in Minnesota and Alaska and Florida and New York State and Texas, and my buddy Steve Owens runs the campus station at the University of Central Arkansas. They picked it up as well after I told him about it. It was something he was kind of looking for and didn't quite know where to find it. And I was like, hey, I've got exactly what you're looking for. So it's the topics vary quite a bit, and there's some I don't have as much of an interest in, and then there's some that are just absolutely fantastic. As far as like you start talking about, genres of music that you may like. So, you find little tidbits here and there that are just absolutely fantastic. And overall, I absolutely love the show. To me, it's appointment listening because it's always learning something new, and it's in a subject, trivial knowledge, basically.
And I've always found that, with music that I, don't have an interest in listening to normally, I wouldn't choose to go purchase and play on my in the car and that sort of thing. And, but the history behind it, I've always found fascinating. And that's with musicians in general, just creativity of, songwriters and musicians, and the backstories of how songs are written, how they're created. I've always found that interesting regard. I could have no desire to listen to it, but the history and the story behind it's always interesting. I think anybody would be well served to tune in, and just from a historical perspective, because it's all creativity. Anytime people or creative people or you're talking about creative people, I always find that interesting, whether it be art, music, sports, it doesn't matter. It's a great show. But real quickly, Damon, anything you got kind of in the irons in the fire, maybe you haven't really sprung on the public yet, that you're thinking about trying to do with the station moving forward?
So some of the kind of maybe delve in a little bit here on the FCC stuff, as far as just because it's been, it's one of these kind of topics that's very, very technical, but just to kind of let everybody know the direction that we're headed is we have been approved for a tower lease. It's going to where we're going to be able to put up the antenna permanently and back to normal power. And back to normal power, we're actually going to blow past that. Part of the whole thing was an increase in power over what it was before. So we're going to actually expand the listening area for the FM signal. We'll be eventually adding the HD signal back as well once everything is good there. And we'll be looking to hopefully build out a second studio so that the HD2 will be more or less a second radio station, as opposed to just a jukebox kind of playing things here or there, a playlist, or basically a stream. We want to be able to add its own unique programming there as well. And what that does is that provides more opportunities for the students to learn, more opportunities to help promote the university, as we'll be able to add sports coverage with that as well, because it'll give us a second signal, and just kind of growing this thing as a whole.
And you talk about, student driven, and that's what it's all about, is helping, students learn how to, learn the radio business, learn how to be creative, and that's awesome. Now, you guys, originally were over in D. Vickers. I know back in the day, and of course, the hurricane and the renovations and all that. Now you're in the University Center. Talk about that transition, and I think eventually you may end up in the new remodeled D. Vickers. Is that right?
Well, we'll wind up with some facilities over there, but not the permanent, or should I say, the main office. The main office and studios are here now in the University Center.
They'll stay there.
We've got our own little office suite with multiple rooms and studios set up. And eventually we'll wind up with some studios over in the new D. Vickers and the new Robin Roberts center over there. But that'll be primarily for educational use.
Okay.
And so students that will be, as part of their class, doing some radio work will have those facilities to use, and then what they'll do is they'll wind up just recording and shipping over what they produce over there over to us to air at a later date. But they'll be able to use the facilities over there to learn the technology and everything else. It'll be more centered in the academic area for them, and then over here we'll continue the operations. And kind of this puts us front and center with not only athletic events here in this building. We're just around the hall from the Southeastern channel, which has been here for quite a while, but it also provides a little bit more ease of access for students as far as parking and everything else. More people in the building, things where it kind of gives a different feel to it to a degree than it was over in D. Vickers, because they were kind of off in a corner by themselves. Here we're a little more high traffic on this hallway, and hopefully what that does is that brings a little more visibility.
Now, you touched on it earlier, but just for those listening, explain the difference between public radio and commercial radio, just for those that really don't have a working knowledge of it.
So public radio is by and large dependent on our listeners and donations to help fill out the budget, but in the case of that is part because while we can sell sponsorships, it's called underwriting. There is no what they call to actions. I can't sit down and say, hey, go visit this business. No.
Not
basically,
the best barbecue, the best.
All it is to a degree is, hey, this place decided to make a donation to a degree is what it amounts to. Hey, they decided that they're going to give us a little bit of dollars. We're telling you that they gave us some money. And here is a little bit of information. And it's generally the services they provide. And it's a list, if that, and a phone number and an address of where you can find them. And then it's up to you. Basically, it's just an announcement to say, hey, they KSAs are basically free spots that run for the betterment of the community, for community events, for anything, but you've got the 501(c)(3)'s got to be tied into it. And then with as well, we can kind of promote ourselves with language that you can't do for a commercial business. So it's just trying to cut down a little bit of the clutter That's really why non-commercial radio sounds a little bit different when you think of NPR versus your typical news talk station. Just the difference in what those sound like on the air, and that's kind of what the difference is a little bit. And then it starts going into just different funding and those type of things.
As far as programming itself, a lot of that's
they do, and it
simple.
does differ as well. There's and a lot of that is whether it is following along with the mission of non-commercial radio, or just the fact that it kind of takes some of the language out of it as well, and some of the clutter of commercial, where a lot of things, typical commercial talk show might have a lot of mention of sponsors and products and all of that kind of stuff in the way. There's going to be very little, if any, of it, and it's going to mainly be limited to, beginning and end of the program, just to say, hey, this program was help funded by whatever. Especially if you watch PBS or the like, it's the same thing. So this program was underwritten by this business. This business X provides this, and we thank you for your support, basically.
Well, very interesting, a lot of exciting stuff, and I can't wait to see how the things play out over at 90.9 The Lion. We can call it that now, right?
Yes, we can.
That's the
new logo, new branding, so to speak, tying it in with the athletic department and the university as a whole. Want to, when people hear it, to think of the university and of athletics, and kind of also make it a little more easy to remember when you hear, the Lion. You associate Lions with Southeastern. That's kind of where we are, and as far as who and what we're here for. So kind of tie it all in together, and hopefully that makes it a little more memorable.
Well, if you're watching our podcast, you can see the logo. We keep it permanently blazing on the podcast on the visual aspect of it, so you can see the new logo. Damon, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your other day job, and that's the voice of Southeastern Lions baseball. And obviously a new era of Southeastern baseball upon us. Bobby Barbier takes over as head coach, and very successful run at Northwestern State. Great background. Played at Northwestern. Spent time at Alabama a long time, and I've known Bobby for a while, and I know you have too. But just your thoughts on him taking over and how the fall went, and what things look like going into the spring.
I've really enjoyed getting to know him and his crew over there. It's almost a complete turnover. I think the director of ops and the athletic trainer, as far as those that travel and are part of the crew besides myself, all completely new. So it's been interesting, them kind of learning how things get done around here, but at the same time, trying to put their stamp on the product on the field. Meanwhile, all at the same time, trying to get the new locker room facility down the left field line finished and moved in. And the transition that goes with packing up and moving out across the parking lot and all of that kind of stuff. And they, in the meantime, the baseball field being on the field was kind of a respite from, all the change that's going on everywhere else. And it was fun to watch. or an inter squad, it's like, okay, are we hitting the ball well? Are we not pitching it well? Or are we pitching the ball well and not hitting the ball well? You kind of leave that up to
the age-old catch-22.
Because it's like, so how do you judge that? And you got guys that succeed and guys that don't, as is the case over the course of a season, and trying to decide how that affects you. So I really like those couple of fall games that the NCAA instituted a couple of years ago, just to be able to see against outside competition how things mix up. And
it's kind of a throwback to the way it used to be. Back in the old days, you could play outside competition. Usually it was junior colleges. You'd bring them in to recruit, and or you'd go on trips. And of course, NCAA did away with that for a long time. You could always do it, but it counted against your spring schedule. And now they've opened it up. But knowing Bobby, this team's going to hit. I mean, his teams have always swung the bat. It's going to be a departure style of play. I think that's going to be evident. I think when fans see.
I think that's going to be the biggest difference, is everybody keeps asking me about that. And I'm like, I really don't know, like, until we get out there and we see, because we're asking some of these returners to maybe play a little bit different style of ball. And then the guys coming in, the newcomers, it's like, okay, well, how do you judge them until you start to see them against outside competition consistently? So it's going to be real interesting offensively just to see how that plays out.
Yeah, there's usually a lag period anytime you're taking over a new program, and because you're not going to change everybody. I mean, you're going to have guys coming back, and they're recruited to play a certain style. And then, of course, Bobby has his style, and that's got to mesh. And sometimes there's a little bit of a transition period. But I think, one thing I think is going to be a constant is arms. He's always developed good arms. I know when he was at Northwestern State, and of course, Southeastern's had a proud tradition of developing arms here. So I think that's going to stay the same. And there's some good arms coming back. Just talk about some of the pieces on this team that are coming back.
Well, obviously, you got your two mainstays and Brennan Stuprich and Will Kinsler. You know what they can do. It'll be nice to have Stuprich with a year plus under his belt after the Tommy John surgery or the injury, and just kind of getting back to full strength and having that feel as well. Because I know that was something he struggled with a little bit last year, was just the actual feel for the ball was not the same until he kind of got late into the year. And then you started to see him kind of take off a little bit. But during the year, kind of struggled. Pitches weren't going where he wanted them to go to a degree. And, now he's back healthy. He's feeling good. And you can't underestimate how much that means to him mentally as well, being out there, having that confidence again. He's a real bulldog. And then you take a look at Will Kinsler, a guy who's just gutted it out for the Lions over the last couple of years. He's pitched through some injuries. You go back to that the tournament team in 22, and at one point he's pitching on one leg just because they needed his experience out there on the mound, and he realized that he's trying to gut it out for the team and gave them everything he could. So you know what you've got in those two guys, and after that it's newcomers coming in, trying to take a look and see what they can do. And at the same time, you had a couple of guys that struggled out of the bullpen last year that are really good arms, and they looked pretty decent this fall. A guy, Hayden Robb comes to mind. And then, of course, you got Jackson Rodriguez, the rubber arm left-hander who, logged a whole bunch of innings last year. He's back as well, and that's going to really add to it.
Well, no question about it. I know you touched on it earlier, but let's talk about this coaching staff that Bobby Barbier has assembled. And I tell you what, at this level in the Southland Conference, I think this is as good a coaching staff as you can put together. Taylor Dugas comes with him, but he had a great career at the University of Alabama. He's a Lafayette native. Just really good presence, and of course Evan Bush is one of the better hitting guys you're going to be around. Played at the University of Alabama, very successful there as a player, and had a long tenure at Jacksonville State. Did a great job with those hitters there, and of course Spencer Goodwin comes, with Bobby coaching infield. So talk about the new coaching staff, and I know they got a chance to really do some damage here in Hammond, America.
They really do, and they've been really cleaning up recruiting wise, and That's good to see, because transition, you never quite know how it's going to be taken, but they've got different contacts. It's going to be interesting to see kind of over the course of a couple of years where the Lions recruit. Obviously, in-state is your bread and butter, and there's talent here, but where do you go to kind of to fill in? Southeastern in the past always kind of hit Mississippi hard, as well as a couple of the Mac Jack schools. For a while there, we're kind of making inroads into Alabama, which I would expect might continue with Evan Bush on the staff and Coach Barbier and Dugas' history, in Alabama, be able to have some contacts there, and just kind of see how that goes. In the past, Texas, obviously, it's there, but it hadn't been as heavily recruited. Do they head that direction? I'm not quite sure. That's what's going to be interesting to see, just kind of the makeup, because you can go back years, and for a while there was a JUCO connection there for a couple of years out of the state of Washington. You go back when you were coaching, Mark, and we're talking Canada and Washington and the like.
Johnny Brechtel, Mark Gosnell had some connections. Marty Lean sent a lot of Canadians, and up in the Vancouver, Washington area, British Columbia, and of course Ken Rogers came, I guess, from Toronto. So it was really a fun time with Canadians back in the day. And of course there was an Australian connection as well, Jeff Williams and Gavin Fingelson from Australia. Of course, the player that never was Craig Lewis, who ended up signing with the Yankees before he ever got a chance to play. But international recruiting is something that has been a staple here for a long time. So we'll see how that goes. But Bobby and his staff, great connections all over. And again, it's just about, again, today with a portal, I mean, it's changed everything because you never know who you're going to have. It really has.
And so, how does that play into all of this? And, I mean, it changes on, it's changed since the last recruiting period.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
How do you deal with the changes?
What are your thoughts on that with baseball? Football's a little different. It's FCS, so you're never going to get that big power player, the big FBS guy to come down anymore. I think those days are probably over, unless it's just a special circumstance with a coach fit or coming back home or whatever. But Southeastern's a different dynamic baseball wise. So in your opinion, how do you see that playing out?
It's going to be interesting, and really, because you have a chance to go get some guys, and you take a look. Ryan Brome, the outfielder, played a little bit of first base here in the fall, comes from Texas Tech. Two-way star Justin Williams coming in from Louisiana Tech. So you've got a Power Five, you got a Group of Five guy that are both in here, as well as a couple other guys, but that's just kind of two key examples right there of what's out there. And, you're a mid-major, so to speak, but and it really kind of depends on how you view it. And it's all about opportunity too. And so this is, you take, as you mentioned, like football's its own animal with FCS and the different categories in that. Well, in baseball, everybody's all in one group here, and so it's more about the opportunities that are there. So I think it lends itself to being able to go get some of those guys that might have been overlooked at a Power Five and couldn't earn a spot. But that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And how does that develop? How does that change? And then, what does that mean for the kids in JUCO as well as the kids out of high school? How do all these numbers kind of end up in the when it comes down to it? I was talking with Coach Selfo about some things that, the portal is what it is, but it's kind of opened up JUCO more than it would have in the past for Southeastern on the gridiron, because all of a sudden there's more talent there at the JUCO level because high school kids weren't getting the opportunities because of the portal in football. It'll be interesting to see what that means over the course of for baseball, because I just don't know. Each sport really is different from each other when it comes down to it, because you have teams that excel in conferences that might be, a baseball conference or a conference that might be a basketball conference. And so what does that mean compared to the other sports at those schools where it's not quite as strong? And so you may see, hotbeds for certain sports where the portal is better than it is for another sport.
Well, you make a good point. And Southeastern, baseball-wise, if you use a basketball analogy, is closer to a high mid-major versus whereas, basketball is more of a low mid-major, as far as the classifications within Division I of basketball, even though it's all lumped together. You got your Power Fives, your elite Power Fives, you got your pretty good Power Fives, and you have your solid mid-majors. And then you got your lower mid-major. Your teams are going to finish 250 and later in RPI. Baseball is going to be top 100 every year. Good years in the top 60, even better years top 40, top 45 have been to regionals as at-large bids. So that's always going to be in your back pocket, although the nature of the Southland Conference has changed. But, with the non-conference schedule that Southeastern is able to put together every year, you're always going to have a chance to get some RPI bumps and that sort of thing to keep your RPI in a respectable place. So, and then top attendance. Southeastern's been in the top 50, top 60 in attendance, I think, every year for how long, Damon? I mean, you're on top of that.
We're going on nationally the last, 5-6 years, but overall leading the Southland Conference in one or the other, whether it be per game or total attendance for a better part of almost 15 years.
And that's, counting some of those Texas schools playing at, counting home games with, big attendances, but Southeastern's going to, getting 1,000 every weekend, and at least, bad crowds are 700-800. Now, back in the day, that would have been your better crowd. So, and you look around the league, that's a good crowd for anybody. So Southeastern, a bad crowd is a good crowd for most Southland programs, and really most Division I programs. You go to Pac-12, for instance, USC, and they'll play UCLA in front of about 1,500 usually on a given weekend. So, that kind of tells you where Southeastern fits. So, when guys are looking to transfer and they want to get on the field, they want to go play in a good environment, especially with the new field house out on the baseball field, the new locker rooms and coaches' offices. That's going to be a big benefit to recruiting. I mean, again, Southeastern's been able to develop the program they have dressing in the Dugas Center forever, and now you get that facility out there, and the Pats, just a great place to watch a baseball game. And, JRT's done a great job upgrading it over year after year and adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You had the video board a few years ago, you get the turf, and you get the new lights, and, the new outfield seating is just continues to upgrade year after year. And it's a great place to play. So if you're a transfer, you're looking to get on the field and play at a high level, this is a place you can come and play. Can I say that on KSLU?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm joking. But anyway, back to your thoughts.
Yeah, it's that's what kind of makes it what it is the investment here. And the crowd buys in, and the crowd grows, and it adds to the atmosphere. It's all one complete package, and that's kind of what has helped kind of turn that corner. Is it's an environment where kids want to come play.
Talk about that a minute. Southeastern, the Southeastern baseball fan is a unique fan. It has its own a life of its own. Talk about the culture of the Pat and just the Southeastern baseball fan at large, because it's a lot of fun when you go to the ballpark.
It is. You're right on top of the action. That's one of the grandstand, the actual main structure of the ballpark is unique in that you do have the box seats, but the grandstand is right on top of it. So if you're sitting up top, you've got a great view. You're within shouting distance of everyone on the field, no matter really where you are. And that really adds to it. I mean, you talk to some of these opposing players, and it's a hostile environment.
There's a Dukes of Hammond around somewhere, but
at the same time, visiting teams, they kind of thrive off of that, and that's kind of what makes it so fun. Is you get that energy from both teams, and it really leads to some good baseball
and some good food too. I know, the cooking club and all that. Just a special environment. I know, J.R. Teagues, helped create that coming in when he took over in 06, and he turned it over to Matt Reiser. Now Bobby Barbier is going to take over, and I just expect it to continue to grow and grow the Southeastern baseball environment at the Pat.
I love it. It's kind of it's got some old school appeal to it in that you're outside of that what is becoming the big business right now, and there's still some purity to it, and especially to the case of, like you mentioned, the cooking club. Yep. Everything that goes on, and they're still kids, they're still college kids, and after the ball game, everybody's getting fed. And, so after the game's over, everybody files out, everybody grabs their food on the way out and kind of mingles on the way out. But it's all about, hey, you leave it on the field. And then after that, you take care of everything else.
And of course, what most people around town, what I hear all the time, what really makes a Southeastern environment, baseball environment, you know what that is? The calm, soothing tones of Dr. Damon Sunde on the airwaves. You have no idea how often I get comments about, listening to Damon Sunde calling the ball game. It's just there's something about it. And I know I do. I'm scouting out on the road for all those years. If I'm driving around Louisiana and I'm trying to get from one ballpark to the next, and you're on the air, I'm clicking it on and usually getting some trivia during the game, and just about as clean a called ball game as you can get in college baseball, really in baseball in general. And I know Southeastern's all the better for having you doing it for all these years.
That.
No doubt.
It's fun. It can be a grind at times, depending on how long the road trip and where you're headed to and how you're getting there and everything else. But that's all part of the fun to me. And, just being at the ballpark, I can't think of any other place I'd rather be. And a lot of times during the course of the game, it's text coming in or answering tweets or everything else. And, it's always good because it reminds you people are listening, and, that they want to hear it. And so it's always good, especially when it's former. The one that really gets me is the former players that tune in and they'll text and listen. And, one of the, never fails, and I miss him dearly, but Caleb Manuel, when he was in between stints on the staff, always listened, and I could count on a text message at least sometime over the weekend from Caleb. Hey man, I'm sitting here having a cold one, listening to you. We got to get this going, or I love what so and so's doing, or this or that. But he was tuned in, bought in, and that was how he was following things.
Well, I'll be honest with you. And of course, maybe I shouldn't say this, but with the advent of ESPN Plus, if you're not doing a game, what do you call it, simulcast or whatever, it's a lot more pleasant listening to the radio. I mean, it just really is. I mean, you can't listen to a Southeastern baseball game without having you call it. I mean, I'm not no knock on anybody else, but it's just
I get it especially when you get a comfort zone and what you're used to and everything else. There are certain people that I like to listen to and certain ones that I don't. And it's not that, they're bad. It's just whatever for me. That's what it is. I loved some of the, I love Vin Scully, Milo Hamilton. I grew up listening to the Astros with him. It's not the same without Milo. Was he technically the best? No, but that was my comfort level.
Yeah.
The same thing, the Cubs. I think the Cubs have done a pretty good job after Harry Carey of at least finding guys that have their own voice that kind of fit, who and what in the atmosphere and everything in the Cubs program. And that's not as easy as it sounds to just go hire. Oh, we're going to go hire the best guy out there. May not be the best fit for you.
I know we're going down a rabbit hole, but you just brought one up. And that's just uniqueness of who's synonymous with what sport. You know what I mean? I mean, you could flip on a game and hear a lot of guys that sound the same. You know what I mean? You have no idea if you're listening to the Cubs, the Yankees, or whoever. But
right. And that's one of the things with the students I've tried to impress upon is now corporate America really tries to homogenize everything. Everything's got to be the same. Blah blah blah. But you go back the old school and you talk, all those guys that I named, they were unique. And what was it about them? What was it about finding their voice? Obviously, it was the experience that came along with it. We're listening, much later in their careers, but they didn't sound like any of the guys that you might find, corporate America networks.
You ever think we're going to get back to that? And it's really changed. It really has. You ever think we'll get back
because
to
you're starting to see so much diversification when it comes to where you can gather your content from, whether it be streaming, podcasts, radio, TV, all the like. They're all different, and it provides more opportunity. And I think that's going to help, as opposed to trying to force people through one particular training ground here or there.
Well, Damon, this is good stuff. I could talk about this forever, and we're going to have to do it again as we move forward, especially as we get into baseball season. We'll make this have you on as a regular feature as we really up our baseball game in the podcast.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I can't wait to start actually talking some baseball with some stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? I love hot stove stuff, but once you get in season, it's the grind, and it's everything is real fresh as far as what may have happened that day or the day before. And that's what I love about baseball, is it's a day in, day out kind of thing.
Well, we're going to have some fun with it, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I appreciate you coming on and talk about the new format at KSLU.
No problem.
90.9 The Lion. And again, we'll catch up soon, and appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Damon Sunde joining us here on the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. We'll step away. We'll come back and wrap it up here on the Southeastern Sports Network.